Nigerians have joined the advising of the economic community of West African states on the dangers of using military might to suppress this coup in Niger Republic. They claim dialogue remains the best way out of the impasse, insisting that deploying troops to fight the military junta would rather compound security, social, and economic challenges in Nigeria, Niger, and the other neighboring countries. Ecowas had last week issued a 7-day ultimatum to the Niger junta to return power to deposed President Mohamed Bazoum, or it would deploy military force. A social political activist, Mahdi Shehu, joins us now to discuss the mounting opposition from the north to ECOWAS using force in Niger and how best to handle the crisis in the West African country. Good afternoon. Great to have you on Arise News. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon.
So, Mr. Shehu, we have seen over the course of time, historically speaking, the results of invasions or foreign powers helping out other sovereign nations in order to solve their own regional issues. Libya and Iraq are just two of those examples, and it ended quite devastatingly. What do you see as the most reasonable way to handle the situation as it is right now? We do know that there's going to be a meeting of ECOWAS on Thursday, this emergency meeting. We know the deadline has passed. What are the options here?
Well, I think the first option is if only ECOWAS had become prisoners of history, they would have acted differently. A prisoner of history is that person who learns lessons from history. If only they recall what happened in Iraq, what happened in Bosnia-Herzegovina, what happened in Somalia, what happened in Libya, in Afghanistan, and the devastating effect of interference into the internal affairs of a country, they would have acted differently. Rather than being prisoners of history, they opted to become prisoners of geography, where they feel they can look at a map, dissect that map, and cherry pick. ECOWAS cherry-picked and made Niger Republic a victim. Rather than looking at the other countries, there are 4 or 5 other countries that are under military rule now. When they took over their countries, ECOWAS was not in slumber. They were not sleeping. They were well alive and active. They looked away because there was no clear vested interest around to protect. But with Niger, America is visibly interested. With Niger, UK is an interested party. With Niger, they can split fire for them to protect America and the UK. And they are making the biggest mistake of their lives. Let Thursday come. Let ECOWAS move their own troops to decimate, to obliterate, and to destroy Niger. And they think other countries are going to just fold their own arms. They will not fold their arms. They are going to fight back. And they are underrating the war in the manner a camel underrates scorpion. Ask anybody who knows the desert very well. The smallest insect that gives camel the biggest headache in life is the scorpion. The moment a camel sees a scorpion, it runs like hell because the scorpion kills the camel in spite of the size. In this case, Niger is the scorpion, ECOWAS will be the camel. It will just be a matter of days and time. In international politics, you don't cherry pick what you want to destroy. You don't cherry pick. They are cherry picking on Niger. And it is an unavoidable blunder. Here is a country, Nigeria, that has multitudinal, multidimensional, endless social, political, economic, and all other problems remaining unsolved, still counting. People are living in abject poverty. You don't even have money to pay arrears, no money for infrastructure, no money for this, no money, and you think you have money to lead a war because other countries in Ecowas don't have the money. Nigeria will fund this war, and Nigeria doesn't have the capacity to fund this war.
Duly noted, Mr. Shehu. Of course, you stating that Nigeria doesn't have the capacity to fund this war. Speaking of Nigeria, one of the questions that we'd like to ask you is why the northern part of Nigeria, why northerners are vehemently against military operations in this Niger coup. Could you give us some insight on that?
It's not only the north. Get the demography very well. Go to the Niger Republic. Get the demography of Nigerians that are staying in Niger Republic. There are Hausas, Yorubas, Igbos, Fulanis, Kanuris, Birams, Ganauris. Every tribe in Nigeria has a representation in Niger Republic. Therefore, don't look at it as a northern affair. It's not a northern affair. Maybe predominantly northerners are there, but there are so many other ethnic tribes of Nigerian extraction that are living in Niger, have been living in Niger, they have married there, they have invested there. Therefore, attacking Niger is not only attacking the north, it's attacking the entire Nigeria. Maybe that is another way of saying that maybe Tinubu dreamt in the spirit of Gideon Oka, who wanted to excise the entire north out of Nigeria. Let him decimate the entire north. And let's see what he's going to get out. If he's not careful, he will lose more than Ecowas. If he loses more than Ecowas, he will lose Nigeria. There is no way you can go to a war in Nigeria involving more than 50 million people and you think you can just look away, you go and sleep, and you sip some tea and feel comfortable and order a military excursion into Niger. Let him go ahead and do that. We are waiting for him to do that. We are not afraid of that. Let him attack Niger, please, yesterday in a manner of speed, not even today. Let Ecowas on Thursday order for a military invasion of Niger. Not Thursday, but please today on Tuesday. We are waiting for it to happen.
We hope not to. It's the proverbial rock between a hard place. In one situation, we have a country like Nigeria that isn't completely politically stable in and of itself. And then we have another country right next to it, well, a bunch of countries that have military juntas who are at the helm, and they seem quite politically unstable as well. Military governments. Right now, it seems like President Tinubu has a lot on his plate. He must be extremely stressed out. How heavily does his credibility hang on how he handles this Niger situation?
Well, already, even before the Niger situation, he has credibility issues surrounding his person, his personality, his genealogy, his political affiliation, his votes, his declaration. This is enough baggage for him. Now, on his own, he elected personally. He elected personally, and he invited stress and placed on his head. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the head to shoulder that tension, to shoulder that stress. If you remember, there are two rivals in Arrow of God. One of them is Umwaka of Idimili. The other one is Ezulu of Ulu. The two of them have been at loggerheads. They have been fighting. And in trying to paint the scenario the way it is, Achebe did a proverb, which I love always, that I prefer to deal with somebody who calls for war and put his head. I prefer to deal with people who throw a stone up there and put their head to receive it than somebody who calls for war. And when it comes, he trembles and passes a premature shit. This is a war that Tinubu cannot afford. Physically, psychologically, intellectually, militarily, the capacity is not there. I think he is using this war as an alibi. As what? As a cover. To do what? To ensure the war comes between Nigeria, Ecowas, and Niger, and then that will make him invoke a constitutional provision for emergency rule. That will not happen. Nigerians are much, much wiser. We have seen in other military, just like you said, in other military, and other countries where military are, they are stable. They have no business going to Niger. If the choice of Nigerian people to assert for their own frustration is a military rule, and they have welcomed it, so be it. Where was Ecowas when other countries were being taken over by military? Where was America? Where is the UK? Where are all these pretenders of democracy? Where were they? If military rule is an option to irresponsible leadership, to fraud in governance, to betrayal of trust, to cherry picking of enemies, so be it.
Mr.
If
Shehu.
civilian president don't like coup, if civilian president don't like coup, they should be democratic, they should be responsible, and they should be answerable. Short of that, coup will always be an option for people who are aggrieved.
Noted. Of course, we'll have other elements to explore with you, but I would like to go back to some of the statements that you've made here. You mentioned that if the president is not careful, he will lose more than Ecowas, he will lose Nigeria. And when referring to the president exploring military options, you stated, and I quote, "We are waiting for him to do that." So I'm just wondering, when you say you're waiting for him to do that, what reaction, since you're also a political activist, what reaction do you have in store should he choose to explore the military option?
When Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, the next 3 hours, the president of the US then, George Bush Sr., went on the air and said, "This is my last message to Saddam Hussein. Get out of Iraq or you lose more than Iraq." He refused to go out and he lost Iraq. If Tinubu decides to go and invade, along with Ecowas, to invade Niger, he will lose more than Ecowas, because definitely we are going to the polls anytime, any day, anytime soon. We will go back to the votes. We will go back to the polling stations. And that is when Nigerians will realize that they have been called upon in the past. Be wary, be careful, beware of a Tinubu presidency. They didn't hear. Now we are seeing the manifestation of absolute failure and incapacity, inability, and lack of experience. Only an inexperienced president, barely 3 months in an office, can begin to think of war. Therefore, our option, violence is not an option. Our options are always, under democracy, our voters' card, our voices, our communication, our resolve to work in team and ensure that people who are bloodthirsty, who cannot go to the blood bank and get a blood, rather they want a fresh blood, will not govern Nigeria, will not preside over Nigeria, and will not continue to decide the fate of Nigerians. Already it's a country where everybody is on his own, everybody for himself, survival of the fittest. The devil take the hindmost. People are angry, they are hungry. Businesses have been crippled. Relationships have been destroyed. And yet under this terrible situation, somebody is thinking of war. Perish that thought of going to war. But for war, let him go to war. In war, there are multiple casualties from both ends. Only God knows who are going to be the casualties of the war between Nigeria. In fact, it's even between Nigeria, because Nigeria will sponsor this war, either by getting loan or by mortgaging anything. Other Ecowas countries are gasping. They are economically dispossessed. They are down. They are below zero line. Let us see how under this situation he will go and borrow money to fund a war, a white-collar war, a war of emotions, and a war that will take him nowhere.
And a war that is sure to create havoc within our continent, not just the Western region, but all through.
Extensive havoc. Extensive havoc.
And as students of history, you can enlighten us some more about this, but you were speaking about who will foot the bill for the war. We're still paying for our very valiant efforts in Sierra Leone and Liberia, in which Nigeria did shelve most of the cost for that. We do know that there is a cost of living crisis that is biting us quite severely, as many as are clamoring for palliatives. But I want to move away from that and ask about the intervention of foreign powers. Still more on being a student of history. Historically speaking, we have seen this happen in many regions. Right now, it is a power play between France and Russia, it seems. We know that the former French colonies are super annoyed with with France. They don't want anything to do with them. We've seen them expel them over the last couple of months. And here comes Russia, who is fighting its own war and creating havoc, internationally speaking. We have the Wagner troops who have decided to help liberate Niger. In such situations where people of a different skin color or a different background and different heritage come to liberate us, we do know that it ends not always the way that we plan. Can you speak about Russia's role in the Niger war and also France as well?
It's not a fight between France and Russia as such. There are three parties versus a party.
Proxies.
The first party is America. Second party is the UK. The third party is the collective union of Europe altogether put together. On one hand. On the other hand, you have Russia. All of them are not in Niger, will not be in Niger for God and country. No, they are there for economic reasons. America, Europe, and France are feeling the pain of the dominance of Russia in their energy requirements. 80% of the energy requirement in Europe comes from Russia. Therefore, they are looking for a way out. The only way out they had was they funded a so-called pipe, AKK file of gas, running through Niger right into Europe so that it will checkmate the excesses and the dominance of Russia in supplying energy. This is the great opportunity for Russia to ensure that that project will not go on. America, Europe, and France will have to continue depending on Russia's gas and energy for any time for a long, very long time to come. Therefore, it's a convergence of hypocrisy, cherry picking, wickedness, man's inhumanity to man, and power against weakness. They are feasting on Niger simply because they are fighting a proxy war. Niger is inconsequential if there was no uranium in Niger. If there was no this pipeline of gas in Niger, it would have been nothing. When you say liberating Niger, I just laugh before I come to comment on it. What are you liberating there? Niger is the second poorest country in the world. Their per capita is virtually below zero if you compare to any of the international currencies. Their educational sector is virtually zero. Health sector, virtually zero. No agriculture, nothing. They have not been liberated of hunger, of starvation, of backwardness, of ignorance, of environmental challenge. They are coming to liberate them, to liberate their own uranium. They are coming to destroy them. They are coming to annihilate them. They are coming to exterminate them. They are coming to obliterate them simply because of man's inhumanity to man. They have refused to learn a lesson in Afghanistan. After decades of war, they ran out. America has forgotten how it went into a small country, Somalia, during Mohammed Farah ID, during those presidents. They went into Somalia and they ran out. Their militaries were being dragged in the city of Somalia. Have they forgotten about that?
Mr.
Have they forgotten how they created millions of orphans in Iraq, in Iran, in Syria?
Mr. Shehu, apologies for interrupting, but we do have 3 minutes with you. I'd like to give you the opportunity to give us your what you think the solution and the way forward best approach would be regarding this situation, please.
The solution is that Ecowas, through its own chairman, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, should look inwards. They should retract. They are already at war with Niger. They have cut up light, closed all borders, placed all other embargoes on them, air, sea, land embargo. This is clinically war. It's a clinical war. Clearly, a war is already happening in Niger. Ecowas and Tinubu should look back, look inwards, retract, become prisoners of history, avoid being prisoners of geography, think wisely, act wisely, behave wisely before it is too little too late. Otherwise, this will be the end of Ecowas. There are already 9 countries that will willingly opt out of Ecowas. And if 9 countries go out of Ecowas, what will remain of Ecowas will be the dream of daydreamers, the pain of the painful, and the stupidity of the stupid will be the only thing remaining.
But just since ECOWAS is relatively divided on this, quickly, do you think the AU should be the one doing the mediation at this point in time? Briefly, please.
AU are also an appendix. There is a clear, direct, indirect, tangential, and linear relationship between AU and ECOWAS. They will do nothing different from ECOWAS. There is nothing like what are you mediating? It's laughable when you send the Sultan of Sokoto, a retired brigadier general, Abdusalam Abubakar, a former military, all of them beneficiaries of a coup, to go and negotiate with coup protesters. It's really laughable. It's ironical. And it shows how daft some people are in policy formulation and execution.
Well, Mahdi Shehu, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for the conversation. And we can only watch as the situation continues. Thank you so much for joining us.